This is where the big boys play, huh? We ain't here to play. At the total combined weight. At the total combined weight of 589 pounds.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, at well over 500 pounds, this is where the big boys play.
All right, welcome to the show, everybody. This is At a Combined Weight. I am your host, Charlie Dudley, joined, as always, by my ever-so-large co-host, Robert McElroy. How you doing?
I'm well, Charles Edward. What's happening, my man?
Oh, you know, just getting closer and closer to the debut of Glacier.
Same here, man. We're drawing nigh. We are drawing nigh.
We are. Today's episode is the September 9th, 1996 edition of WCW Monday Nitro. We're beginning we're bringing our build to Fall Brawl War Games to a close. This is the go-home show for Fall Brawl War Games. And we open the show with commentary running down the actions of the previous week. DiBiase showing back up. DiBiase getting into the limo. The Giant joining the NWO. We don't know who the fourth partner will be in War Games because DiBiase isn't wrestling, and the Giant's match with Randy Savage is still on. So that's kind of an overarching theme for the night.
Another theme, though, especially in regards to their opening commentary, there's an admittance here that the power has shifted in favor of the NWO.
See, I had a problem with that.
Yeah?
Yeah, I had a problem with that. I mean, the fact that the balance of power has shifted. So let's think. In the annals of history, and even in today's mode of thinking, even if, let's say that you're going down, you're in high school, and a guy challenges you to a fight, and you show up to a fight, and he has 4 guys, and you have about 30, who's going to win that fight?
I would like to think the one with a 30.
Yeah, I mean, unless he's got fucking Chuck Liddell and Brock Lesnar with him, and Randy Couture, or Conor McGregor with him, or 3 Brock Lesnars and him.
Well, that's the
30. But that was my problem with the idea of the balance of power. How do they have power? They have the world title, and that's it.
They have a world title, and they have Hulk Hogan's money.
They have 4 guys.
They have Ted DiBiase. The balance of power is just like you said. It'd be like if that kid showed up to the fight with 4 badasses. He's gonna have the upper hand.
He's got a locker room of theoretical badasses.
Not compared to Kevin Nash, Hall, Hogan, the Giant. It's like
you have former world champions in the WCW locker room. You have Sting, you have Luger, you have Flair, you have Randy Savage. That's 4 guys that have held a world title, okay? And then you throw in the Steiners, you throw in the Faces of Fear, you throw in the Nasty Boys, you throw in Harlem Heat, you throw in Kevin Sullivan and John Tenta and the Big Bubba, you throw in Mongo, you throw in Benoit, you throw in all the Lucha guys. How do you not have more power in WCW? That's what my point is. Like, I can say that there's been a shift in control. Like, it seems like they have a little more control, but I didn't like the idea that the balance of power. That's like saying that the football team that you're playing, they're only playing with a center, a quarterback, and a running back and a wide receiver, and they're going to beat you. My fucking dick, they are.
Thing is, man, it's the way the whole thing's been booked. The NWO's been booked to look so much stronger. They've been booked for this power shift that's happened.
Right.
They've been,
but to say that the
happened.
balance of power has shifted is a little, I don't know.
Well, it would be a theme throughout the show, so you must have fucking hated the show then.
I didn't really like most of the show, no.
I didn't think you would. I liked it okay.
I don't like the whole balance of power has shifted. They're 4 fucking guys.
Well, what they want to do is for
I
the WCW fans.
I understand the mindset. I understand the mindset.
Okay.
I understand what they're pushing, but I can't suspend my disbelief enough to buy into the idea that the balance of power has shifted when there's 4 fucking guys.
Even from the guy who admitted that this is when NWO is at its strongest, you still feel that way.
Yeah, I do. Because if you're in a match, if you're in a wrestling match, it's going to be hard pressed to put more guys into the ring that are going to be able to do, they're going to be able to match up with these guys. And because the reason why, from an on paper standpoint, you have a young world champion in the Giant, you have an all-time great in Hogan, and you have 2 guys that drew the shit out of some money in WWF, and you have an all-time great in DiBiase. On paper, from a wrestling standpoint, you can't put the guys together that will equal those accomplishments from a storyline standpoint.
Well, I will say,
because to do that, you would have to throw Savage and Flair, and the way that they booked Flair at this point was terrible. But Sting, Luger, Savage, Flair against the 4 guys that could wrestle, it's not even a question. Like from an on paper standpoint is what I'm talking about. Because this is the strongest point, because upcoming you add X-Pac, and then you add Buff Bagwell, and then you add Conan, and then you add Scott Norton. It just dilutes the greatness of the NWO. Yes, it's the strongest faction. It's the strongest and the best of the NWO. But if we're talking just sheer combat here, the balance of power, come on.
yeah,
It's so a little unbelievable to me.
they rarely booked WCW and put them in a position to really get their heat back. Is an issue. That's an issue I had throughout this whole storyline. Even as a kid who could suspend my belief, it was always these false finishes, and WCW could never seem to get their heat back. I mean, poetic justice. I understood that in an early age. But so if you're going to have what they have here and an admittance that there's been a power shift, WCW needs to be able to get some heat back.
Yeah, but they won't.
Not for a long.
And that was a problem with the booking,
time.
I think.
Well, yeah.
And the way that they book Fall Brawl is a little different, but it just was basically a rivalry that nobody buys into, like Iowa State. Nobody thinks Iowa State's going to beat Iowa in football.
Mm-hmm.
Or Florida, Kentucky in football.
Almost 30 straight. Hasn't been 29 straight in that little...
I don't know how many straight. It doesn't really matter. It's been a long fucking time.
That's what I think. It's been 29 straight. Florida over Kentucky.
It's just that those 2 games came to mind because they actually played this weekend.
Gotcha.
So, but it's not a rivalry if one side wins all the time. I mean, it could be, I guess, a rivalry, but one side will go into it thinking, well, I guess we'll just go lose again. First match on the show was pretty terrible. I was not a fan of it at all. Pat Tanaka versus Super Callow. And those of you who are following along will notice that Pat Tanaka was El Gato, but he's not wearing his El Gato mask, but he still had the Asics and the shitty rolled socks. And Pat Tanaka's best days were behind him. This is Super Callow's Nitro debut. So I feel even better about my rant last week about them giving him a title shot. The fact that this is his Nitro debut, and it's the go-home show for the show that he's going to face the fucking champion on.
It was a sloppy match. I especially felt the very end was sloppy. That spot where they're on the...
It was so awkward.
The top turnbuckle where... I mean, I know what they were trying to do. I know what they were going for sure. But it was sloppy looking, and actually it was downright dangerous.
It was. It was like Tanaka was trying to do a gut wrench suplex or a gut wrench powerbomb, but he flipped them, and then Callow turned, and then Tanaka like fell on his shoulder and probably broke into a million pieces.
Yeah, no, it looked bad. I did not like this very much at all, and I did see during this though. We did see a group of what looks like some Chi-Fi pledges with boxes with their NWO T-shirts on,
right,
with their box of documents. That became more important than a match itself, since the match did suck.
Of course, the NWO Street Team, as I called them, because that's what I think TNA called people that handed out flyers and stuff later in their history. They called them the Street Team.
Oh, okay. Well,
it's just people passing out flyers and propaganda and whatnot.
Yeah, well, anytime I made note of it in my my copious notes, I referred to them as the Chi-Fi pledges.
Nice.
Yeah.
The backstage segment next with Rick Steiner mentions how Nick Patrick ended the match early last week between the Steiners and Sting and Luger, just pushing Rick Steiner and Luger for later in the show. And Rick was acting a little slow mentally, which is kind of his gimmick, but it was a little over the top for me here.
He seemed to be a very confused and insecure Rick Steiner. And yeah, they do push when they have their match a little bit about how he's kind of mentally off. I mean, the guy acts like a fucking dog, for goodness sakes. You know?
Right, he always has.
The only thing I didn't mind about his confused way about him is that there was no Scott Steiner. He didn't have his partner, so maybe
right.
he's out of his element. So that was the only reason why that made sense, and it was kind of funny. Oh, I could beat you.
Amusing.
I can beat you. And Luger tells him straight up.
I thought it was just a little insipid.
Yeah. Oh, Luger tells him straight up, you know, you're a tag team guy, I'm a singles guy. Essentially tell him he is out of his element.
Right.
It was silly.
Then we have an NWO commercial pushing the new T-shirt. They made a big deal out of this. Now, I want to say that when I went to Nitro in Birmingham, that they were selling the NWO shirts away from the WCW shirts.
Well, that makes sense.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. I mean, here you have a storyline where a faction is taking over a company, and then you're a kid, you know, he's about to buy his, foam finger 4 Horsemen deal, and then right next to it is some NWO stuff. What's that about?
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but it makes sense if they're going to sell their own gimmicks.
Yeah. I like how the NWO, this paid-for announcement, it's pretty brilliant synergy to sell some T-shirts.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to have the NWO promotional segments throughout the broadcast. Hey, why not have one where they're pushing a T-shirt?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and they come back to the telecast from the commercial, and you see 4 kids wearing spray-painted white T-shirts with NWO on it. So, I mean, they're getting over with a certain section of their audience, for sure.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you still have people that like guys no matter what they did. I mean,
oh, yeah.
I was that type of fan. I was going to be a fan of Brett regardless of what he did.
Just weeks prior at Sturgis, when Hulk Hogan hulks up, or whenever the hell it was, you had a certain section of the crowd
Was it
cheering.
Clash of Champions?
It was, okay, Clash of the Champions. You still had a certain section of the crowd cheering.
Yeah. Because Hogan's still Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Nash debuts the buy the shirt comment, which would be echoed throughout any time they did a promotional idea. From time to time, Nash or Hall will tweet that as well when they're pushing something. They'll say buy the shirt.
It's funny. I love how things that happen very impromptu will just turn into a thing.
Yeah.
You know, there's probably no telling how many takes they did of just different things they could say and pushing the shirt and pushing how badass the NWO shirt is.
Right.
And Nash out of nowhere, buy the shirt! And it sticks.
Yeah.
I love
and becomes
that.
Things get over organically.
Yes.
You know, shit that happens just get over organically. Up next, Shivani talks about how Glacier debuts on WCW Pro. I really didn't understand the point of them debuting him on WCW Pro.
I agree. It seems much more appropriate to have him debut on your flagship show.
And I know it's going to be it's a bigger deal when he debuts on Nitro, but a lot of the WCW audience has seen him already if they watch WCW Pro. It'd be interesting to know what was the mentality and thought process behind that.
I agree.
I hope there's a way that we can find that out soon.
Yeah, no, because it would be something good to know. It like you said, there's a certain section of the WCW audience that's already seen him in his entirety in a match and everything.
They didn't show much footage. They showed Glacier doing some martial arts moves with flashing lights in the ring. Then we have a match that was pretty terrible as well. The debuting amazing French Canadians, Jacques Rougeau and Carl Ouellet, against the Nasty Boys. Jacques Rougeau and Ouellet, of course, were the Quebecers from WWF. And Jacques Rougeau had been with WWF for 1,000 years as a part of the fabulous Rougeau brothers and one of your favorite gimmicks ever.
I am the Mountie, and you are an idiot. I was telling Charles some years ago how I had watched a match with the Mountie in it, and I think it was, he did his usual, I am the Mountie thing, and right after saying it, Heenan's all, and you are an idiot. So whenever you and I discuss Mountie, we also discuss idiocy.
During this match, the street team, or as you call them, the Chi-Fi pledges, were handing out flyers, and it says, you've seen bad, or you haven't seen bad, but it's coming. I thought that was kind of stupid.
They could have come up with something a little more ominous, or...
Right. Knobs hits Ouellet with the Quebec flag to get the win. Nasty Boys take the win over the debuting team into a post-match segment, pushing their title match against Harlem Heat at Fall Brawl. I thought it was funny, one thing, that Mean Gene calls them the Rougeau brothers instead of the amazing French Canadians. And we still get the same gimmick with Nasty Boys, whether they're NWO or not. Every time it's just like, Are you NWO? Well, you're friends with Hogan. They have to say every week that they're not.
No, the only thing about it at all that changed was how Knobs had to reiterate that those belts belong to WCW.
You're right.
We want the damn belts. Screw NWO, screw WCW. We just want WCW's belts. But yeah, they are kind of beating a dead horse a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's been several weeks now, and they've started asking him every time they are talking to Mean Gene, he's bringing it up.
But I just maybe they just can't think of anything better to do with these guys. Is that maybe?
That's definitely it. Because I mean, what else are you going to do with the Nasty Boys? And Harlem Heat wasn't even at TV, probably.
Yeah.
Scott Norton, Sergeant Craig Pittman, a hold-for-hold match. This is a backdrop to set up Norton Ice Train at Fall Brawl, which is a submission match. I haven't really liked the build and this whole feud between these two guys.
It has been fourth, fifth, maybe even sixth banana to everything that we've seen for weeks on end. I mean, the last time Norton gets a little heat on Ice Train is when Ice Train's on the CompuServe. I mean, that was during MGM. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember more.
I mean, he's probably, they've had some heat on each other on Saturday night, I'm sure. But it just doesn't. These two guys are split up tag partners that are supposed to hate each other, and they just kind of talk shit right in each other's face.
Yeah, Ice Train takes his happy-ass time getting out to the ring in the most ridiculous-looking piece of 90s denim that we have covered on this show since its inception. That vest with like a backpack built into the back of it.
It looked ridiculous. I've never seen anything like it.
I don't know what he was going for, but good God. Like, I don't even remember seeing anything like that in the 90s. There's still a lot of denim in the 90s.
I've never seen anything like it in my life.
Saw fanny packs in the 90s, but never a book bag sewed into a denim vest.
No, Up next, then we had the backstage segment with Flair, Arn, and Luger. Then we start getting this idea of Sting is missing. Flair asks where Sting is. The Mongo says that Sting's abandoned ship, said that he knew it. He and Benoit are ready to step in. Luger says that Sting's in the building. And then we get a great promo from Arn, like we always do. He says he's actually reserved a hospital bed in Winston-Salem because he knows he's going to get hurt. Because when you get into war games, you're going to get hurt. And I remember watching this portion of the show as a kid just because of what comes up next. And I thought it was really cool that Arn was planning on getting injured to take out the NWO.
He's done the best job out of everybody on the roster, out of all the commentators, of getting me, a viewer, excited for Fall Brawl. I mean, he is. I wonder how many pay-per-views he alone sold by pushing how gruesome and violent and awesome it's going to be simply by promoing about it.
Yeah, I know.
So cool. Love the hospital bed line as well.
I mean, I love anything that Arn does during this time period. He and Flair, their best in-ring days are behind them at this point. So they have to talk you into their feuds and talk you into the building, as it were, and they do a great job.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what you do as an older veteran when you know that you can't go out there and put on a 60-minute 5-star match. You can add to some heat to where you have just as much heat for a 8 to 10 minute match that isn't super impact.
Absolutely. I mean, either older guys or like injured guys. I mean, look at Daniel Bryan's role in the company right now. It's right. With his brain, his wits, rather than in ring.
Yeah, using his mind for the business, if you will.
Yeah.
video package for DDP and Chavo Guerrero. It's forwarding their feud. Neither of these guys appeared on this Nitro. It shows the Diamond Cutters that were on Eddie that led to Chavo coming out, and then Chavo beat DDP and then got attacked with Nick Patrick's belt. DDP and Chavo will face off at Fall Brawl. I thought that WCW did a terrible job of pushing the pay-per-view outside of just a War Games match.
I would agree with that assessment.
I mean, I was kind of excited to see a lot of the stuff that was on the Great American Bash. Getting invested in the storylines. You see the Nitros building up to it. You want to see Benoit, Sullivan. As tired as we were for the whole Horseman football gimmick. And, the Bash of the Beach was largely NWO centric. But that's what the build to this has become as well. It's a one-match show. It's like you're going to buy the pay-per-view and watch for the NWO match. And that's it. We don't give a shit. We're just going to have video package after video package to push the rest of the card.
It was funny. As a kid, I thought WCW was flawless and could do no wrong in the way they booked Nitro and the way they did their thing. But then now, in keeping up with it like we do, I see all kind of little problems like this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, as a kid, you're just thinking about how your parents aren't going to let you get the pay-per-view, so that makes you want it even more. And then they keep talking about it, but not really like pushing what's on it necessarily. They mention, hey, DDP and Chavo are fighting at Fall Brawl, and then up next you have Juventud Guerrera, who he's going to be battling Conan. And did we mention that the NWO are fighting the Horsemen, Sting and Luger? And so you're like, man, I think it'd be a great show. But I mean, you're not getting it because your parents. So I mean, it kind of adds to the. You want it because you can't have it kind of deal, maybe.
Oh yeah, for sure.
This was a WCW pay-per-view I did not get. I didn't get it. I didn't. I got Halloween Havoc that year, and I got World War III. I think I got Starrcade.
I didn't get a single solitary one. I think my situation.
Yeah, I know.
Dude, it's well documented on the show that I didn't. But had my brothers been as wild into wrestling as I was, instead of only Malin giving a shit about Thunder in Paradise and occasionally Sting, maybe, and I do mean a hell of a maybe, I would have gotten a pay-per-view then, but that's pushing it.
Right. Up next, we had Juventud Guerrera versus Joe Gomez. As I mentioned just a second ago, Juventud will face Conan at Fall Brawl for the Mexican heavyweight title. And during this match, Tenay brings up the fact that Conan's changing his look, and he's going to be more of a Mexican gangster type. And so that's the start of the Odele, Arriba la Raza.
And how
Let me speak on this.
And how it's very prevalent in East Los Angeles area and other, metropolitan areas of the United States. Like, I was like, wow, okay, so we're going to just go ahead and map this out. Where it's... Thank you, Tenay. Yeah. Thank you for being thorough like you are, but, we got this.
Yeah, here's the geographical map of where he's basing his look off of. We're going to cut to the back, and me and Gene's going to have a geography lesson of where Conan got his clothes from. I didn't think this match was very good either. I thought it was too much of a contrast of styles. Joe Gomez isn't very good. I think Juvi should have been put with somebody smaller, cruiserweight, rather than Joe Gomez, who I haven't really been impressed by anything Joe Gomez has done.
I haven't either, and he's a pretty big dude.
Right.
They need to be putting him against guys that fight a similar style that he does. Yeah. I mean, you got so many people you could have put Juventud against.
Right.
So I didn't think this was very, very good either.
Mean Gene gets a little dig at at Juventud when he's walking to the back after this match. Juve gets a win with a springboard corkscrew plancha. And Juventud's walking to the back when Mean Gene's talking to Nick Patrick. And Mean Gene says something like, this guy just wanders around the back. And I was like, holy shit, Gene's just got some heat with Juventud, I
guess. It's not often you see Gene get heat.
Yeah.
At all.
So the post-match segment with Nick Patrick, they talk about Nick Patrick ending the Luger Steiner, the Luger Sting versus Steiner Brothers last week, and pushing the idea that Nick Patrick was a heel. And then we cut to the outside where the NWO is passing out flyers on car windshields. And DiBiase's talking to someone in the limo with the umbrella. I thought this was stupid, too. That DiBiase's talking to somebody while holding an umbrella when he could just get inside the limo.
I think that the rain really hurt a lot of what they were doing on the outside. We'll get to absolutely why at the end of the telecast when we're discussing it. But, they had all this planned out and just had to deal with the rain factor. The rain took away,
right.
The rain really took away from what they were doing out there. I remember thinking and watching this episode of Nitro, man, if you'd have just gone to the arena and hung out in your car or tailgated, you were treated to some shit. I mean, you're a Nerf football throw away from Hogan and Nash and these huge stars.
Oh yeah.
I mean, had you had any idea that's how it would be, or if you're just like, hey, I can't afford a ticket right now, I'm kind of broke. Let's just go tailgate. I've seen them do some stuff outside before, like they did at MGM. Why not? This has been, other than the rain, would have messed up your tailgate.
Oh, dude, I was thinking, the Birmingham Nitro comes up in 2 weeks from this. And when we went, everybody was looking around in the damn parking lot and stuff. Hoping that they would see NWO people doing something. That one area that's right across from the big parking area that's not a parking deck, that's kind of outside at the BJCC. People are looking around all kinds of, and just hoping to see some kind of NWO guys doing shit.
I think that's really cool.
DiBiase was talking to somebody in the limo, so they start speculating who the guy is. Will we know? Will we find out? Who is the fourth guy going to be with him in Fall Brawl? And then we have Rick Steiner, Lex Luger, Schiavone.
He's here later he's going to be getting together with the Steiners.
Yeah. Schiavone is pushing the question of where is Sting. And Larry Zbyszko, I think, does a good job here of saying, not to get paranoid. Sting's not even booked. Why would he be here? It's not like you come to the shows and just hang out, even though, sometimes they do. Although it was a decent match, some decent power spots, and then we get Nick Patrick running out, comes to the ring and motions to Luger to come to the back. And at that point, they showed DiBiase talking to somebody in the limo, and they've dubbed Sting's voice in from a promo in previous weeks. And then Luger comes out and is attacked by Sting, with air quotes, and the rest of the NWO. And Bischoff screams, no, 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 no. Now, when I was a kid, I thought when they first showed it, I wasn't paying great close attention to it. I thought it was Sting. And then when they showed the replays later in the show, I didn't think it was Sting. I thought it was a guy, a guy that was just dressed up as him. But I was, as a kid, I was thinking, Well, the NWO's tricking everybody, and they're falling for it. So it was just as dastardly of them, but I wasn't really blaming Sting, if that makes sense.
I had forgotten this whole deal with Sting and how.
It's what leads to the Crow Sting.
Yes, no, we're certainly getting to that. Can't wait for it, but yeah. No, well, now I'm confused as hell. So I did think that was Sting.
Back then?
No, now. Hey, hook, line, and sinker here, man. The hell? Really?
No, yeah, it wasn't Sting.
Shit. I mean, we would have a lot more very obvious moments where it wasn't Sting. We'd have a lot of like these. It's not. There's no way it's Sting moments. You know?
Right. Yeah.
I didn't know this was one of them. Fuck.
Right. Yeah. The guy that comes out, he used to be the fake Sting, which he was known as Cobra, which is a play off of the G.I. Joe character. If you go back and look, he's a little more meaty, like meatier than Sting. He's got a little more. Sting is a little more lean, and yeah, I mean everybody buys into it, hook, line, and sinker. Even you, that I guess you had forgotten this existed, and you're like, holy shit, Sting. But as a kid, I remember watching it intently on the replays and stuff, and seeing, I was like, that's not him. That's not him. But, you know, I didn't follow WCW enough to where I was going to buy the pay-per-view. But, yeah, so it's not him, but it's the WCW audience and the WCW wrestlers and the NWO, or not the NWO because they know who's in their faction, but the idea is that Sting has joined the NWO leading into Fall Brawl.
I agree that that's just as dastardly a move to pull something like this, to pull the wool.
Yeah, because you're
eyes.
basically trying to test the loyalties of the rest of the people that are supposed to trust him. And that's the idea that leads to the Crow character, is that Sting felt betrayed by WCW and felt betrayed by Luger and all the guys that were supposedly trusting him and believed in him as Sting, the franchise of WCW.
Which is brilliant. I don't think you have, I mean, that's such a intricate little detail about how you're getting heat. And oh my God, like, I feel like that sort of thing is never, ever even, that's deep stuff, you know?
Yeah, it is kind of deep stuff.
You don't see that done these days.
No. After the supposed Sting turn, a video package of last week's NWO action shown, they edited out the giant screw-ups. I know that you noticed that. And then we show Luger searching through the limo that was left behind. And then we have Rick Steiner, Scott Norton, Bubba, Knobs, some aging French Canadians are helping search for NWO guys in the parking lot. Then we cut to a match, which was very real. It was a good, quick match. I thought they should have given it more time. But at this point, pretty much everything else is just kind of thrown out the window because they're pushing the shit out of the fact that Sting's joined the NWO. What's going to happen at War Games? Billy Kidman, Rey Mysterio. Good action, I thought. I mean, it's definitely what you're going to get out of these two guys. Rey gets the win with the springboard flipping senton, propelling himself into his cruiserweight title defense at Fall Brawl.
Yeah, you know, I liked the match, but it was rather brief. I would have liked to have seen...
Yeah, really, really brief.
I would have liked to have seen a lot more of it. At this point, the wind... It is out of the sails of the announce team. They are defeated. You can hear it in their voice. Maybe not so much Heenan, because that's not his style.
Right.
But, I mean, with this storyline that supposedly Sting has joined NWO, I mean, they are just so... It's the rest of the show. The whole announce team, they're done. They're defeated. They don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah, they're very distracted. They don't give a shit.
For this reason and more, do you feel like they had the whole fake Sting in the limo deal happen too early in the show?
No, not necessarily. So that you could, if you were on the fence about ordering the pay-per-view, this was a way to get you to do it, because not only do they push the fact that Sting could be the fourth guy in the War Games for the NWO, who do you put as the fourth guy for WCW if Sting is indeed not the fourth guy for WCW? If you go into Fall Brawl thinking, okay, it's going to be Hogan, the Outsiders, and Sting against Flair, Luger, and Arn, which one of Mongo and Benoit do you put in that spot?
No.
As a WCW fan, you're thinking, well, I need to watch that. So, I think it's good that they did it, because here you're going to watch the rest of the show to see what happens, to see if there's any kind of clarification on what happens with the Sting angle, And they got to build to that later in the show. Up next, Faces of Fear versus Public Enemy. It's an okay match, about what you expect from these two teams. The Leprechaun randomly runs out in the middle of this match and is running around the ring bizarrely, and even Jimmy Hart looks afraid of him, and he's supposed to be the manager of this guy.
It's, at this point, it is X-Pac heat.
Oh, yeah.
Dude,
no one gives a shit.
No one gives a shit. He was apropos of absolutely nothing, and really every time he's come out,
yeah, no one cares.
No one cares. It's fed.
Yeah, that whole silly cartoon gimmicks have gone by the wayside now. There's no place for them in WCW. I think that's why, in large part, the Dungeon of Doom kind of falls by the wayside during this time, is because none of those guys are really over as dastardly heels, except for really Kevin Sullivan.
Yeah.
So it just kind of kills the faction in my mind. And WCW didn't even give a shit about this match. They cut away in the middle of the match to the Horseman and Luger. They don't give us two screens. They don't give us two screens to where they have, the Horseman talking and we're able to watch the action. They cut to the Horseman in the back with Luger. And arm promos on Sting. And
dude, and for those that are watching the match, they don't have a Titantron to also be able to see that there's a...
Oh, yeah, the live crowd has no idea that Sting has done anything or not Sting has done anything. They have no idea that the Horsemen are promoing about him. They have no idea what's going on.
Dude, they needed a Titantron so bad during this era.
Oh, yeah.
There have been... Dude, so many shows they've needed that in a big way.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
I would argue they needed it just as much during this era than what's happening currently.
Yeah, they don't do a lot of stuff in the back.
No.
It's mostly all done in front of the live crowd.
Mm-hmm.
So Arn's cutting a promo on Sting about him being the franchise of WCW. Luger's talking about getting stabbed in the back. Flair says it'll be 4 guys. And then Arn kind of intimates that they've got 2 other guys they can count on if they can't count on Luger. So there's the push for, which guy are they going to put in there with them to be their 4th guy. And then they cut back to the match. They have a little back and forth. Barbarian goes through the table, missing Rocco Rock. And then Ming gets put through the table. And they waste a little time. And then Ming just no-sells the fact that he went through the table.
He goes full Hogan Sting on him here.
Yeah, he does. He just starts kicking them. And Face of Fear get the win. And then Heenan calls Ming Haku.
Which, you know what? I missed that Heenan called him Haku, and then later Eric Bischoff would rebuttal, and I was like, I had to back it. Oh, wait. Bischoff's apologizing for something having to do with WWF. Let's back this thing up. And then I listen and I go, oh, well, shit. I was just reminded about what Heenan said and just got right by me.
Yeah, he says Haku, and then he kind of stops like, oh, shit. And then Bischoff throws it to the next segment. Yeah, Bischoff has to clarify that Ming's no longer Haku, and he's definitely under contract to WCW because at this point, WCW and WWF are in very litigious battles back and forth over gimmicks and gimmick infringement and that kind of deal. Post-match in-ring segment with the Dungeon of Doom. Conan is sporting his geographically specific gangster look. I thought his promo was terrible.
Oh, yeah.
He had like a frowny face the whole time, and he was trying to sound like too stereotypical Mexican gangster. And you know how later he'll settle into it, and he gets a little more comfortable in it. But in this point, it was just like really over the top to me.
I felt he was much more charismatic and much more interesting as the Conan we once remembered, as the Conan that was carrying the title. And
yeah, I think we'll get to that. But at this point, it seems kind of forced.
Yeah, but the Conan Mexican gangster gimmick would get kind of interesting.
It gets
to me
a little
later.
long in the tooth for me.
Yeah, it was a little much. When I was a kid, I thought it was funny. I would like do impressions of it. And Blake,
I never was a huge fan.
Sometimes my brothers one of them will still say "Arriba Barraza," but no, I don't know why. I don't know why I thought it was so funny when I was young. I don't know. That was another time.
Yeah. Bubba promos on Glacier as well. Says, come get a little bit of this, Karate Man. So, obviously, we're going to have a Glacier Bubba feud.
Yeah.
And when Glacier finally debuts.
And Kevin Sullivan talks about how Randy Savage owes them a debt.
And he's going to be able to work it off.
By beating Tenta and the Giant. So he has a metric tons worth of debt.
Yeah, exactly. He owes the Dungeon of Doom a fat shark and a traitor to WCW.
Yeah, tall order. Kind of a tall order.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's a damn half a ton of human. Up next, we see the NWO commercial. The push in the DiBiase has more money than Ted Turner. We've got your belt, pushing WCW. Couldn't believe that the Giant turned to the NWO. And then DiBiase starts listing demands if they win War Games. And he says they want their own segment. They want a tag title tournament. And then we see the debut of the For Life sign from Scott Hall.
Well, he
says, yeah, but he actually does it, and he turns it sideways. He goes, For Life.
Yeah, at this point, he makes it a thing, but we'd already seen the For Life. When did he see it? It already happened.
They sprayed it, but they didn't say it all the time.
They did not say it all the time. Yes, and I do.
And he didn't make it a hand signal yet either.
I felt like I remembered, like, at some point during their spray painting NWO For Life, that you kind of like, they don't say it, but you see them do, like, this thing.
Yeah.
But
he explains it, and this is where I guess is the jumping off point for it.
It definitely is the jumping off point for it, and this is the first time it becomes a thing that, everybody would do, whether you liked NWO or not.
NWO For Life, yeah. Then we've got the main event of the evening, John Tenta, with entrance music now.
Oh, yeah.
But he still hasn't fixed his hair. His hair has been like this for 3 months.
And at this point, he
is cutting it that way on purpose.
Yeah. I wonder if he likes it. He just likes the look.
I mean, I guess it's part of the gimmick and it's kind of old school, but I mean, at this point, he's gotten his heat back. He won the sock match.
Yeah. Drop it already.
I mean, it was very bizarre to me. But I mean, when he came out with entrance music, I thought about how pissed you got in the early run of the show, how he didn't have interest music and he thought it was bullshit.
Well, at first I did, but I'm gonna be real with you, man. You sold me on why it was necessary for him not to have it, and I would, and trying to let that sink in, would watch some of his other matches that are going forward and go like, well, yeah, this is all right. This makes
Now he's Big John Tenta, so he has his own music for John Tenta. He's not a shark anymore. He's a man.
Yeah.
Savage hits Tenta with a chair 3 times, then hits the elbow, and then Teddy Long comes out. It's so weird, the people they choose in which to get them to come out.
Yeah.
Like Teddy Long has no direct link to Randy Savage at all. And it's like if some random person runs up to you and says that there's a fight going on or something, you're like, who the fuck are you? And if you're Macho Man, you're like, why is Teddy Long coming to my match? And then Teddy Long's like, they're back. The NWO's back.
Weeks prior when they were at MGM Studios and they had Jimmy Hart come out to interrupt the match, I thought that was brilliant. It made sense.
Yeah, because it made a little more sense because of the guys that were in the ring.
Yeah,
It made it ironic that they had to trust the fact that Jimmy Hart was telling them the truth because the Horsemen were involved. But here, Teddy Long and Randy Savage, they must have just been like, hey, who wants to run out there? And Teddy was like, I want some screen time, playa. Holla, holla.
it must have been because
it doesn't make any sense. Like he's just thrown out there. I mean, maybe I just pay attention to little stuff too much, but it doesn't make any sense.
Or they thought, well, we had a manager do it that time. We got to get another manager. Shit, who's on?
Well, they had Nick Patrick do it earlier in the show.
They did,
and that made a little more sense because he and Luger had a dust up about the disqualification from the week prior. So that made a little more sense. They find spray paint in the limo again, and WCW guys are spraying the limo with paint. You got Savage, Flair, Dungeon of Doom, Ice Train, Kidman, Public Enemy, Knobs. Everybody's trying to spray paint the limo, but it's covered in water. So you can't even see it.
Yeah, and the main reason why the rain hurt the segment so much, they can't. A good choice in yellow spray paint. I mean, they just spray. Sure, I mean, yeah, they'd have some leftover yellow spray paint from when they painted
Macho.
Yeah, and yellow, that's part of the official colors for WCW, or at least it was there for a long time. So.
Oh yeah, purple and yellow were their colors.
Yeah, what better color to have for them than to, but there's rain all over the fucking limo, so.
Yeah, it killed it. To me, it killed the whole segment. They're just like spraying it. They could have just sprayed a bunch of dicks on there and you never would have known.
Dude, and it was as simple as, okay, you get one of those little Chi-Fi pledges that are wearing the NWO t-shirts to run out there with a towel. You have him wipe it down as good as he can and as fast as he can because, kayfabe, and he runs the hell off. Boom, you got a dry limo.
Yeah.
Or at least dry enough for some paint to stay on the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know why that was a simple fix. And
I've actually been to the Columbus Civic Center. I know where this parking lot is.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I mean it's behind the arena.
Yeah, I always found it bizarre that I had to go cross the state line from Auburn to Georgia to get my Volvo worked on at the time.
Oh yeah, a lot of people don't work on Volvos.
Yeah, I mean, the closest Volvo dealership to Auburn, Alabama was in Columbus, Georgia.
Well,
yeah.
Many times I went to Columbus to buy lotto tickets in college.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Then the end of the show, Heenan starts talking about the NWO, says WCW needs to band together to stop them, even though their actions make you want to hurl, and then Arn Anderson shows up and says that he's shocked I know the world's shocked and outraged. And then he brings out an interesting idea of the NWO being modeled after the Horsemen. And Arn kind of says, hey, it's taken me to this point to kind of realize the game plan in which you're following is a game plan that we made up. So you're basically playing catch up, the NWO. So at War Games, we're going to be on the same page. We know the game plan by which you're playing because we invented it.
Such a well thought promo here, and
it was all Arn too.
Oh God, just beautifully done. And it really is true that without the Four Horsemen, you don't have an NWO. You don't have a You don't have a Degeneration X. You don't have Evolution. You don't have
any great heel stable post like 1983, 84. Because that's the way they got heat. They were the guys that rarely, if ever, got their comeuppance. I mean, they did because they were booked properly, but they were the guys that you loved to hate back then, and they were so good at what they did that they got over, and they did heelish things, but they weren't heels, which is exactly what the NWO ended up being. That they were so cool they got over.
That's right.
And then your boy, Ric Flair, interrupts Bischoff and just goes nuts about War Games and the NWO, and that the Horsemen will get their shot at Fall Brawl War Games.
Talks about how they're going to sweat and they're going to bleed and going to pay the price. Anytime Flair's talking about a cage match, he lists those items: sweat, bleed, pay the price. And this is not the first time that one of the Four Horsemen would actually threaten the life of Hulk Hogan. Says he's not going to leave town alive. What promo have you heard in the last 5-10 years where someone's talking about taking another person's life?
None.
Doesn't happen.
None. They would never talk about killing somebody.
No.
Not at all.
I mean,
they're never going to say, "I'm going to kill you."
The Horsemen have pushed and sold this War Games so incredibly well. I mean, they're going to kill.
Not even the Horsemen. Flair and Arn.
Yeah, sure. Flair and Arn. They don't let Mongo and Benoit talk much. I mean, Arn's going to reserve him a hospital bed, and Hogan's going to be, a few blocks down, or at least the body of Hogan. They're pushing it as some violent stuff. I love it.
Oh yeah, and that's what War Games was supposed to be. Two rings inside of a cage, and the only way to win is by saying you give up or submission.
Oh yeah, and
like just saying, hey, we've had enough.
And guys did not wrestle this match without there being blood.
No, it was Blood City.
Oh yeah. Well, when you and I watched that War Games documentary, it was kind of a documentary / a bunch of matches. Man,
right.
It might be the bloodiest thing I've ever seen, other than
it is.
Other than Quentin Tarantino's last 3 or 4 movies.
Yeah, I mean I love the War Games matches, and I don't know that this one upcoming with the NWO is, even can hold a candle to the ones in the 80s. But we'll see. Yeah, that's the end of the show. It's just a go-home show for Fall Brawl War Games. That takes place on September 15th. So that's the next time you'll hear us. We'll be talking Fall Brawl War Games and then the Nitro that follows it.
That's right.
So the NWO it's unfolding slowly but surely. We got the Giant, we've got DiBiase, we've got more people on the way. We're going to get the payoff at Fall Brawl for the whole Sting deal, and seeing that idea that whether he joined the NWO or not, how will that affect the match? How will that affect WCW going forward? All those questions will be answered. on the next Nitro. You got anything else?
I sure don't, man. Nothing else here.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us today. As always, you've been listening to At a Combined Weight. You can follow us on Twitter at A Combined Weight. Shoot us an email at acombinedweight@gmail.com. As always, you can get into Robert's social media network via being_large on Twitter and Instagram, and
Robert McElroy Actor, Facebook.
Yeah, thanks for clicking the link that brought you here. If you are curious about some of our other audio offerings, we put up a great show recently, our action figure special, talking about wrestling action figures and how we had tons of action figures and how they affected our young wrestling fans' lives growing up, and talked about Hasbro, Jakks, Galoob, and other action figures that we had and how we incorporated them into our fantasy booking as children. It's a really, really fun show, nostalgic walk down memory lane. If you want to check that out, it's on our YouTube channel, At a Combined Weight. You got anything else?
I sure don't, man, but definitely to reiterate what Charles is saying, it was a really fun show to do, and it's gotten some good reaction from some people that have listened to it and have told us about it via Twitter or just told me about it straight up via text or whatever. So definitely check that out. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks again for clicking the link that brought you here on PWInsiderElite.com. Make sure you check out our YouTube channel as always. This has been Charlie Dudley for Robert McElroy. This has been At a Combined Weight. We'll see you next week.
Baby's gonna change her life. She's made up her mind. She's leaving her girls behind, and her lovers unkind. Crazy Mary, look back and you're done. Just hold